Well, it all started in December 2007 when we borrowed a small amount of 10,000 rupees for a very high interest rate. And we tried to pay it back as soon as possible, but we were not able to pay the principal however much we tried. And added to that, the interest was piling up. And to pay one person, we borrowed from another, and to pay another, we borrowed from another. And it was like a trap which was pulling us deep into it. The more we wanted to get out of it, the more we were sinking into it, and the debt that we had incurred was way beyond our thinking. When we actually calculated, it was more than 2 lakh rupees. And it was like the end of our world. We didn't know where the amount was coming from. We didn't know how we would pay it back. And we just didn't know what to do. And that was the time we looked unto the Lord and trusted Him. And God proved His faithfulness towards us.
It was in this situation that we were under tremendous pressure because we couldn't share it to our parents, and Pushpa couldn't tell it to our mother, and we didn't have anybody that we could share our problems to. And we came to a point where, I even thought of selling my bike, and got some quotes for taking off my laptop and things like that. I was thinking, under pressure, all these things were crossing my mind, and it was like, even in our relationship, it was like a breakup situation. But it was at that time that I gave a call to Pastor Raj, and he said, just calm down first, both of you, just calm down, and don't be stressed. Don't raise up your tempers, and don't lose your cool, but just come and see us the next morning. So even all through that night, in the first week of May, it was like, it was a cold night, and we were not looking at each other, and it was really bad. The next morning I went to see both pastors, Pastor Raj and Pastor Merlin. I was like uptight, and I wanted to share my problem, and I was thinking in the natural, like I need some help from somebody, and maybe they want to help me or something like that. Many times they have blessed us, and they have blessed us tremendously, and they've been a great blessing to my family. So I was thinking in the worldly way that maybe if they can help us with some money and try to get out of the situation and get done with the whole thing. But all that pastor shared was, number one, he made us sit down, and he said, look, you got to do it God's way. And he said, no matter what the situation is, both of you shouldn't break apart. You should be together, and you should fight this battle together. And Pastor Merlin encouraged my wife, and she said, no matter what the situation is, we are always with you. And that's all they said, and they sent us away. And we came the next day, and they encouraged us with the Word of God, and they prayed for us. And there was few specific things that Pastor told my wife. He said, number one, he said, every day you have to confess Proverbs chapter 31. And ever since she's been doing that, confessing the Word and reading the Word, and sow a precious seed and begin to believe for a total debt cancellation. And they prayed a prayer, and they let us go. But how thoughts come across mind, and how things happen. There's pressure in life, and you're thinking, how do I pay the next installment? How do I pay the next bill that's coming? And how do I budget my income? And all these things. And even during that time, we went through further difficult situations, where we had to separate from the family and take a different apartment, and everything was, it was like coming like all of a sudden on us. But one thing I learned in this church was, when you sow a seed, God will meet every need. That was one thing, and I kept remembering what Pastor said. He said, do it God's way, do it God's way. And once in the service, when he was sharing the prophetic word, he turned to me and he said, God is supernaturally going to cancel the debt on your life. When I see you, I see money pouring out on you. We just held on to those words. We just held on to whatever pastors were sharing. I put it down on my mobile phone. I wrote it down in my book. And there's one thing that Pastor always says. He says that when you're faced with a giant, you must never run away from the situation, but you have to face your giant with courage and take him on. There's one thought that came to my mind, like Pastor said, that no matter what the situation is, you got to work this out together. So when I was writing down my confession, I said, Lord, not only I must be blessed, but my wife must be blessed, Abigail must be blessed, and even little Shefa must be blessed, both my daughters. And I put down the confession, and in my confession I said, Lord, every day I will be blessed, my wife will be blessed, and my daughters will be blessed. Every day we used to do this confession. I made a copy of it and I gave my wife, and both of us used to confess, and we used to confess it in our family prayer. We used to pray for the favor of God. We used to pray for financial breakthrough. And then, whenever there was an opportunity to give and to sow into the kingdom, we began to give. We began to give. We began to bless other people. Apart from my tithe, we put up a special percentage that we need to sow even in the lives of poor people, because I heard Pastor Raj and both Pastor Merlin sharing. They said that when they started giving to the poor, or every month they give a certain amount of money to the orphans or poor or widows or something. And I said, look, when they can do it, I can do it too. And we started removing a separate amount. Whatever the blessings were coming from our salaries, whatever it was, we started giving even to the poor, giving our tithe, and sowing above and extra whatever we usually did. There were times when I was led to sow my wristwatch. There was a time when I didn't have anything, and I had this earpiece of my cell phone. I sold that too. There was a time that I sold my mobile phone. My wife sold her gold chain. There were different things that we kept doing, and even as we kept sowing, we started the blessing of God release over our life. And every time there was one debt cancelled, one person that we paid, I always SMS'd to my pastors and I said, Anna, Akka, we have cleared this debt. And there were a couple of occasions when we didn't pay the monies, but the people that we had to pay money, they called us up and said, look, you don't have to pay this money. It's paid for and it's taken care of, so you don't have to pay this money. Believe me, my friends, when I was going through this situation, it was not easy, but it was not impossible either. And as we were confessing the scriptures and as we were sowing our seed faithfully, bringing our tithes and offerings to the house of the Lord, money started pouring in supernaturally. And there was one thing that we always learn from our pastors is they always teach that you must never have wasteful expenditure. Especially if you are taking on a debt, especially if you're going through a situation where it's tight and things don't seem that easy for you. Don't even put money for new clothes. Those are not important. What is important is first clearing whatever you have. So during that time we never even thought of buying new clothes or things like that. But believe me, clothes came. Clothes for our children came, jewelry came, all sorts of good things in our house came. We were blessed with a brand new fridge. We were blessed with a grinding machine. I know for some of you this may be very little, but for us at that time it was very precious. And God was beginning to fill our house with good things. We still had the debt, we were still paying the debt, but God was blessing us. And friends, on the 14th of December 2009, we walked out debt-free. It was during this time that two special message tapes of Pastor became very dear to us. Number one was Confidence Factor. I was listening to this series so much so that it stopped working in my car. That's how much I listened to it over and over and over again. It was in my iPod. We heard it at home. When I was not around, my wife used to put it on the DVD and see it. And the next one was Fear Not, Only Believe. These two CDs were a real blessing for us. And even as we were hearing this word, whenever I felt down, whenever I felt that things are not working out, I used to get back to Confidence Factor. Begin to hear it again. Get back to Fear Not, Only Believe. Begin to hear it again. And as I heard the word, as I confessed the word, as I was obedient to what Pastor said, and as I brought back my tithes and offerings, and as we sowed sacrificially, on 14th of December 2009, we were totally debt-free.